Hello, Dan Baldwin here from the Community Foundation for Monterey County. Honored to be reading the final chapter of Cannery Row in its 75th year of publication and the 75th year of the Community Foundation. Doc awakened very slowly and clumsily, like a fat man getting out of a swimming pool. His mind broke the surface and fell back several times. There was red lipstick on his beard. He opened one eye, saw the brilliant colors of the quilt, and closed his eyes quickly. But after a while, he looked again. His eye went past the quilt to the floor, to the broken plate in the corner, to the glasses standing on the table turned over on the floor, to the spilled wine and the books like heavy fallen butterflies. There were little bits of curled red paper all over the place and the sharp smell of firecrackers. He could see through the kitchen door to the steak plates stacked high and the skillets deep in grease. Hundreds of cigarette butts were stamped out on the floor, and under the firecracker smell was a fine combination of wine and whiskey and perfume. His eye stopped for a moment on a little pile of hairpins in the middle of the floor. He rolled over slowly and, supporting himself on one elbow, he looked out the broken window. Cannery Row was quiet and sunny. The boiler door was open. The door of the palace flophouse was closed. A man slept peacefully among the weeds in the vacant lot. The bear flag was shut up tight. Doc got up and went to the kitchen and lighted the gas water heater on his way to the toilet. Then he came back and sat on the edge of his bed and worked his toes together while he surveyed the wreckage. From up the hill, he could hear the church bells ringing. When the gas heater began rumbling, he went back to the bathroom and took a shower, and he put on blue jeans and a flannel shirt. Lee Chong was closed, but he knew who was at the door and opened it. He went to the refrigerator and brought out a quart of beer without being asked. Doc paid him. Good time? Lee asked. His brown eyes were a little inflamed in their pouches. Good time, said Doc, and he went back to the laboratory with his cold beer. He made a peanut butter sandwich to eat with his beer. It was very quiet in the street. No one went by at all. Doc heard music in his head, violas and cellos, he thought, and they played cool, soft, soothing music with nothing much to distinguish it. He ate a sandwich and sipped his beer and listened to the music. When he had finished his beer, Doc went into the kitchen and cleared the dirty dishes out of the sink. He ran hot water in it and poured soap chips under the running water so that the foam stood high and white. Then he moved about collecting all the glasses that weren't broken. He put them in the soapy hot water. The steak plates were piled high on the stove with their brown juice and their white grease sticking them together. Doc cleared a place on the table for the clean glasses as he washed them. Then he unlocked the door of the back room and brought out one of his albums of Gregorian music, and he put a Peter Noster and Agnus Dei on the turntable and started it going. The angelic, disembodied voices filled the laboratory. They were incredibly pure and sweet. Doc worked carefully washing the glasses so that they would not clash together and spoil the music. The boys' voices carried the melody up and down, simply but with the richness that is no other singing. When the record had finished, Doc wiped his hands and turned it off. He saw a book lying half under his bed and picked it up and sat down on the bed. For a moment he read to himself, but then his lips began to move, and in a moment he read aloud, slowly, pausing at the end of each line. Even now, I mind the coming and talking of wise men from towers, where they had thought away their youth, and I, listening, found not the salt of the whispers of my girl, murmur of confused colors as we lay asleep, little wise words and little witty words, wanton as water, honeyed with eagerness. In the sink, the high white foam cooled and ticked as the bubbles burst. Under the piers, it was very high tide, and the waves splashed on rocks they had not reached in a long time. Even now, I mind that I love cypress and roses, clear, the great blue mountains and the small gray hills, the sounding of the sea, Upon a day, I saw strange eyes and hands like butterflies. For me at morning, larks flew from the thyme, and children came to bathe in little streams. Doc closed the book. He could hear the waves beat under the piles, and he could hear the scampering of white rats against the wire. He went into the kitchen and felt the cooling water in the sink. He ran hot water into it. He spoke aloud to the sink and the white rats and to himself. Even now, I know that I have savored the hot taste of life, lifting green cups and gold at the great feast. Just for a small and a forgotten time, I have had full in my eyes from off my girl the whitest pouring of eternal light. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, and the white rats scampered and scrambled in their cages, and behind the glasses, the rattlesnakes lay still and stared into space with their dusty, frowning eyes.